Your favorite PGA and LPGA legends, pros and top instructors are right here every week on Next on the Tee. Join Chris as the greats of the game share their stories, insights and playing lessons. Now, back to Chris and more of the show.
All right, now back with me here on the French Lick Resort guest line is Mark Carnevale. And let me remind you folks about Mark's background. He is from Annapolis, Maryland. Played his college golf at James Madison University, where he was a 4-year letterman and a 2-time MVP. While he was there, Mark won the 1979 Governor's Classic and the 1982 James Madison University Invitational. Graduated with his degree in marketing and a minor in economics. In 1999, he was inducted into the James Madison University Athletics Hall of Fame. He turned pro back in 1983, and he won 4 times out on the PGA Tour. At the 1984 Virginia Open, the 1990 Utah Open, the 92 Chattanooga Classic, and the 1997 Nike Inland Classic. Mark was named the PGA Tour Rookie of the Year in 1992. He finished tied for 25th at the 98 U.S. Open at Olympic Club over in San Francisco. Like I say, you can hear Mark now on SiriusXM's PGA Tour channel, as well as PGA Tour Live, and I am honored he is back with me again tonight here on Next on the Tee. Hey, Mark, thanks for coming back on the show.
Well, thanks, Chris. Glad to be with you, and thanks for the invite.
Wow, you bet. So, Mark, as I introduce you as the 92 Rookie of the Year, now I got to switch that up and say you are the 92 Arnold Palmer Award winner. Talk about what it's like now to forever be linked with the King.
It's really special, Chris. Mr. Palmer was obviously not only responsible for really making the game to what it is now, but he certainly was one of my heroes along with my dad. He was the reason I really kept pursuing the game of golf after seeing an interview he did, I would say probably in the late 80s. And then, of course, I went on to qualify for the tour in the fall of 1991 and spent 12 years out there. But it's such an honor. I couldn't be happier because obviously, as you mentioned, it links me not only now with the game of golf, but with his legacy. And as I have spoken numerous times since the announcement was made yesterday to numerous people, I just couldn't be happier. It is such a cool thing to be linked with him now, and it's just wow. I'm just honored, quite frankly.
And Mark, obviously it comes, at the time of year when we have the Arnold Palmer Invitational this week. So it's got to make it a little extra special now, right? Because now the award has changed to his name. You're going to be out there, I'm sure, covering the API, and it's just really got to fill you with a great sense of pride and a great sense of who the King was and what he meant to the game. And now you're going to be there, with the award, obviously in your portfolio, but also walking the golf course and the essence of Mr. Palmer. It's got to make it extra special for it to be this week while you're going to be there.
Absolutely, Chris. One of the things that I think maybe is lost amongst Mr. Palmer and not only what he did for the game, and there's a bit of a link between he and my dad, is that he reminded me of my father so much, and just the way they handled themselves and the way they understood sort of their place in what they did. My father, was a basketball Hall of Famer, was a collegiate coach, was an athletic director. They did things that was very unselfish. Their goal was to make the game better than when they first got there, and without question, Mr. Palmer has done that. More than you could ever think anyone could do it, and that's what's really special to me is he was very unselfish. While certainly he made a lot of money through different endeavors and whatever, but he really put the game above himself and was very unselfish in how he approached it, and obviously with the Arnold Palmer Invitational and what it does not only for the community of Orlando, but for charities and the Winnie Palmer Hospital and everything else. He did that not for himself, but he did that to help other people and to make the game better, and certainly made an impact in the game of golf, which will go on, forever and ever and ever. And as I said myself, and all the other PGA Tour pros really owe him a great debt for what he did in allowing us to play this game at the level we do and everything that comes with it. And yeah, it's going to be very special to be there this week, particularly with the announcement yesterday, and I'm really looking forward to it.
And Mark, you mentioned a couple of things so far. You used the word unselfish a number of times, and then you also spoke about your father. And I want to talk about both of those things in context with your father for a moment. And he was a veteran who served in World War II. You've told the story, and you've actually tweeted out recently about how he was adrift at sea for 7 days at one point, and then you mentioned your father as a head coach. So if you wouldn't mind, talk a little bit about your father and the things, about his life and what he instilled in you.
Well, I mean, obviously, as I mentioned, he was my hero. He was one of my best. He was my best friend. I grew up, I was born later in his coaching career, and he coached at Chapel Hill in 1945 and 46, and lost to Oklahoma A&M in the finals of 1946. Hank Iva was the coach at A&M, and then he went to the Naval Academy for 20 years, where I was born in 1960. And I was a great athlete. He played at NYU in the 1930s. They won a national championship there, I believe, in 34 or 35. That escapes me. He was involved in basketball and college athletics his whole career. I have 3 older brothers and an older sister. All my 3 older brothers played collegiate basketball, one at South Carolina, one at James Madison, where I went to school, another went to the University of Delaware. And when I came along, he retired in coaching in 66, so I was 6 years old. And my dad was a really good golfer. And, he taught the game to me, and he showed me the game, and never really any pressure, but just instilled, the quality of and the character that you had to be with whatever you did. And as I said, he believed in making his profession better for those to come after. My greatest, people ask me what my greatest moment in golf was, and obviously I won. I played the Masters and had so many other things, but really the greatest moment was my dad was with me when I qualified for the PGA Tour back in the fall of 1991, and I remember he had to leave early. He caught a flight, so I wasn't done. He knew I was going to make it, but just didn't know where I was going to finish, and this was back before cell phones and all that. So I called him at the hotel before he was leaving for the airport. He wanted to know where I finished, and I think I ended up finishing 18th or 19th, and he couldn't speak. And my father was a very, 6'5", just a big, monstrous Italian guy that spoke with his hands and was loud, and my dad couldn't speak, and that's the greatest moment in my life and my golfing career, knowing how proud he was of me. And he lived a wonderful life. He lived to the age of 92 when he passed away, and it's obviously involved with the NCAA selection committee, only person to be on the selection committee twice. He was one hell of a role model, and he really came from nothing out of Raritan, New Jersey, and made his way to New York to go to New York University. And I had big shoes to fill, but he was one who always was supportive and understood that as a man or anybody that you have to do what you want to do. And I wanted to eventually pursue golf for a living, and he was there the whole way. And I was very fortunate in my life to not only be around him and my family, but certainly the greats and icons of sports throughout all of it, through what his career was. And as I said, I've been very fortunate in my life, and Arnold Palmer was Mr. Palmer was someone else, who I spent some time with, that just reminded me of my dad so much that it's very special.
And Mark, talking about a number of things that you just mentioned, your father being proud of you and big shoes to fill and being around great icons of sports and different sports. Well, you're inducted into your high school Hall of Fame, Lafayette High School, along with Lawrence Taylor, Ron Springs, and Mel Gray. Nice company that you've got in that class. And then you also are in the Hall of Fame at James Madison. Boy, I'd say you made your father proud and you filled those shoes quite nicely. And then obviously what the great things you're doing now as a broadcaster. But talk about being in both high school and college Hall of Fames.
Yeah, it's pretty special. I mean, like my dad. I mean, I as back in 1998 at the U.S. Open, when the popular phrase, you're the man, and I was playing well, and unfortunately I didn't have a great final round. But I remember someone saying, "Hey, you're the man." I'm just a man. I mean, I'm someone who, when I started this game, Chris, it wasn't for the money. I just loved playing golf, and I wanted to entertain people that came out for it, and to be recognized with those honors. And again, with this honor, obviously I won the Rookie of the Year back in 1992, but now to be linked to the Arnold Palmer, I mean, it's just it's an honor, and I've never believed that I could ever give enough back to this game of golf, what I've gotten out of it, and where it's taken me all over the world, and the people I've met, and the experiences I've had, and to have been inducted into those Hall of Fames is pretty special because, again, I'm just one individual, and I believe I've helped, I've carried myself with character and for passion for this game, and not just in golf, but in life, and respecting people, and understanding that we all contribute to some aspect of life. And I, like my dad, I want to make what I've done better, and it's worked out where it's now broadcasting, and I hope I make it a better experience for those fans out there that love this game like I do.
Mark, switching gears a little bit, I want to get your thoughts. Obviously, the issue over the rules is dominating golf talk right now, particularly the drop rule, and the issues don't seem like they're going to be going away anytime soon. What do you think about the drop rule, and what are you hearing from the players?
Well, I just think, I mean, look, I have the utmost respect for the USGA and the R&A, and they want to, they've made an effort to make the rules easier for the average player, and I think that's good. But again, there's never, I've always felt there's too much gray area in the rules. To me, whether you drop it from your knee or your shoulder or whatever, it doesn't matter. I mean, to me, the rules should be read, okay, you can't drop it below your knee. I mean, what difference does it make if you drop it from your knee, your waist, or your shoulder? I mean, is that breaking a rule? I mean, to me, that makes no sense. And again, it's rules should be easy for the average person because not everybody is a tour player. And I would be the first to admit, tour players are probably extremely ignorant as far as all the rules of golf go. And it should be easy. It shouldn't be a guessing. And the rules of golf, in my mind, should not be there to penalize you. They should be there to help you. And I think there's a disconnect when these rules are written. And again, they're people that are stewards of this game, but I don't know how many of them have played competitively. I don't know if enough of them understand exactly what goes on through in a player's mind as they're in the heat of the moment. And it shouldn't be, I mean, you subject to a penalty or you're subject to relief. It shouldn't cause agony, and it appears to be causing angst, and there's too many question marks. Yes, I know the rules have just changed and they've been implemented, just 3 months ago, but it shouldn't be that way. I mean, it shouldn't be this question of, am I doing it right or whatever. It just to me, there's just too much gray area in them.
And Mark, how much do you think the frustration that the players are showing, do you think goes back to the issues that the USGA has had with setup of the last several U.S. Opens, sort of a frustration boiling over with the USGA in general, going back to the U.S. Open and now when we see these rules? Is there a correlation there or no?
I think so, and I think the players' frustration, I think it's probably frustrating on all professional tours, is there are organizations, yes, they run a handful of major events. They run, a couple, 3-4 professional events throughout the year. And there's other factors in this. And when you have people make, at least in my mind, when you have people making the rules that are not there. It's like you don't know how I feel unless you've walked in my shoes. And very few of those people have walked in a tour player's shoes, whether it be a female or a male. I think it is challenging. And I know that we spoke about this before we came on. I mean, I am a big fan of bifurcation of roles. I am absolutely a fan of that because it's a different game for the amateur player and the professionals. And again, I think it's when you have people that, and I'm not saying they're not trying to do what's best for the game. I just think it's you're not talking to the right people. And I don't know if they bring players. I mean, the whole Twitter war between Justin Thomas. I mean, come on.
Right.
I mean, what are they doing? You know, you can't tell me you can't figure out a way to talk to Justin Thomas, or any player. Look, again, as I said, I have a lot of respect for what the USGA and the RNA have done for the game of golf. But at some point, you know, you have to have people who have a better understanding of what the game is, and I'm not sure they do.
And Mark, as you mentioned a moment ago, yeah, we touched on bifurcation before we came on live. Do we need different rules for the pros versus the rest of us? Do we need different equipment standards? Do we need both? What are your thoughts on where bifurcation needs to happen?
I think it all needs to be looked at, Chris. I think, you know, again, I'm old school. So, you know, I think the USGA, while the USGA and RNA have addressed certain things, I don't think they've addressed the golf ball. I don't think they've addressed the equipment. To me, as a professional, as someone who played this game for a long time, and I'm not going to say, you know, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm saying crying spilt milk over the fact that, well, back when I played, we didn't have this. You know, it is what it is. I'm not, but I think that at some point you have to understand that there is a certain amount of talent that is taken out of this game by the equipment. And I hate to see that. You know, we talk about the golf courses that maybe have become obsolete, that, you know, some of the major championships can't be played at anymore because they're not long enough. I mean, you know, you go back to Marion and people say, well, look what happened to Marion. I get that. But there's so many great golf courses that can't hold major championships because, quite frankly, I think because of the equipment. Players don't care how long they make the rough. I mean, if you're going to bomb it out there 350 yards and you're hitting wedges, what do you care whether you're playing for the rough or the fairway? I mean, I just personally, and I said, you know, I've been around sports long enough that, you know, games evolve, sports evolve, and things change. I mean, it's like we can't compare the players now to Bobby Jones and Walter Hagen and so forth, just because it's just not fair. It's just not fair because there's different circumstances, and not to say one's better than the other or vice versa. So I think you have to adapt to it. And to me, you know, it's just like with the anchor ban rule. You know, that was around. You know, the USGA and RNA should have addressed that when it happened, not wait 25 years and then change it, because, quite frankly, I think it's you know, it is quite the word's not coming to my mind. It is, you know, it has gotten people disinterested that use that, and they want to be able to play events. And to me, it doesn't make any sense to not let people, if that gets them to play the game and they enjoy the game using, you know, an anchored putter, so be it. I don't care less. I mean, Arnold Palmer was criticized by the USGA because he supported that Callaway ERC driver because it went further. You know, if someone hitting the ball further up the tee makes them enjoy the game and play the game, then that's good for the game. So, I mean, obviously I don't have an opinion on all this, Chris, but and as I said, I respect the USGA and RNA, but to me, there's a disconnect somewhere.
Mark, I want to switch gears again, and I want to go back to your playing career. And I was looking up some things, and when you won the 92 Chattanooga Classic, you did so by coming back. You started out in 20th place. You were 5 strokes off the lead going into the final round. And one of the interesting stories from it, I read that your caddy, Leroy Schultz, who had previously caddied for guys like Lanny Watkins and Tom Weiskopf, but he told your friends along the second fairway, he's going to win today. What do
Yeah.
you remember about that, and why was he so confident that early in the round that you were going to do it?
He didn't tell me that, Chris. I think, I mean, here's someone who's, he was a caddy at Augusta National, and obviously, as you mentioned, caddied for Lanny Watkins and Tom Weiskopf, and he understood the game, and I guess he just saw it in me. I mean, when people are around sports that have been around sports a long time, they recognize things, and it was just cool. It's funny because I think I had 8 birdies, an eagle, and 2 3 putts for 2 bogeys to shoot 64. It's something that I remember it, but I don't remember it because, as we've always talked about, I'm sure you've talked about it with numerous guests on your show. I mean, I was in a zone. I wasn't even thinking about it, and I think I missed a 5-footer for birdie on the last hole, but it was pretty special. And, I would say the only sad thing was that I had friends there, but I didn't have any family there to see me win. But it was a very special day. It seems like a long time ago, and it was now, almost 27 years ago, Chris. So, but yeah, Leroy was a great. I considered him. He taught me a lot about the game of golf, and so obviously helped me a great deal. And I think the key was he let me just play. He just let me play golf that day, and obviously I went on to win.
Mark, one more before we let you go. And as we get to this time of year, many of us immediately start thinking about the Masters. And Augusta National is one of my favorite places on the planet. You got to play in the tournament in '93. What do you remember about your first experience playing in the Masters tournament?
Well, a lot of it was a blur. I didn't play particularly well. Probably the one thing that stands out to me is, I went there a couple times before the event, for a couple days and got a sense of the golf course. It was the sad part about it. Leroy was supposed to caddy for me, but unfortunately he didn't make it. Leroy had some issues and he didn't make it. So I had taken a local guy there and a guy by the name of Joe Johnson, and he was a great caddy. But I remember from Wednesday to Thursday, the green speeds had changed. And I 3-putted 4 of the first 5 greens, and so I got off to a bad start. And then I was in the second round. I was paired with Billy Casper, who I had an opportunity to go to Morocco with in the off season, that same year, as a matter of fact. And Billy told me, he says, "Yeah, it takes you 4 or 5 times to figure this place out. Not that you'll ever figure it out, but it takes you a few times." But I remember it was really more about everybody that supported me through the years to get to the PGA Tour. I remember I rented a house, and I stayed in a hotel, but I rented a house for them, and I had all my friends and some of my sponsors and dear friends there, and my family. And I had obviously hoped to get back and play, and I never did, but it was really for about them. But in retrospect, I was okay with that because I knew how important it was for them to be there and to see me there. And obviously I would have liked to play better, but it's a special place. And I'd never forget walking from the locker room out to the first tee, and I just felt like I was walking on air, and it was hollow ground, and all the greats that ever played the game had set foot on that property and played in this event, and pretty special.
Mark, before we let you go, let our listeners know, how can they stay up to date with all the great things you're doing, whether it's online or it's on social media?
Obviously, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm not a great Twitterer or tweeter or whatever you call it. I do occasionally. It's at MCROY at 92 on Twitter. I work PGA Tour Radio, and I do PGA Tour Live. I'll be on PGA Tour Radio this week for the Arnold Palmer Invitational. Next week, I'll be on PGA Tour Live. You can go to PGAtour.com to find out about that. I'll be there for the players. I'll be doing radio on site at the Valspar Championship, and I'll also be the analyst for radio for the World Golf Championships. Dell Technologies Match Play and I got a week off, and then I will do Augusta, the Masters for Westwood One. You can hear all that on Sirius XM PGA Tour Radio, and then I'll also be on site at the RBC Heritage for radio. So I got a busy 7 weeks coming up here, Chris.
Yes, you do. Indeed, you do. Well, Mark, it's always a huge thrill for me to get to spend some time with you. I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your night to come back and be a part of the show. I hope I get the privilege of catching up with you again sometime real soon. You are absolutely spectacular, my friend.
Well, thanks you, Chris. Anytime. Happy to do it. And to all you your listeners out there, golf is a great game. It's you develop that passion for it, and I'm happy to shed whatever little light I can on your listeners anytime.
Well, I appreciate that very much, Mark. All the best to you and your family. I hope I get to catch up with you again soon.
Hope so too, Chris. Take care.
See you, Mark. That's Mark Carnevale, and I tell you what, folks, and I mean this sincerely, when I think about the greats of the game from a broadcasting perspective, and I said this in the intro, he and Maureen Medill, I believe, are the two best to ever do golf play-by-play on the radio. I enjoy listening to Mark. I miss him having his own show on PGA Tour radio on Sirius XM, but always look forward to listening to Mark and listening to the broadcast wherever he's going to be. And when he gets on the mic this weekend, I'll be listening. And I really hope I get the opportunity, and I really say privilege, of having Mark back on the show again real soon. Arnold Palmer Award winner, 1992, Mark Carnevale.